You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you tied a rope to me. You're blessing me every day.
Yeah. I don't know about that one and that one. All of it. I need it all. Do you want it though? Where do I begin? I see the hate, they don't wanna see me win. Bank deposits, I got more coming in. Top down, throw the money in the wind. I don't want it all. Heard he scammer, had to switch up the accounts. Moving paper, gotta call it my account. It's all in, I can have it coming out.
You know what, Shannon? I don't know. I kind of like our theme music. I'm starting, you know what I mean? In the background, I'm kind of like, hey, I kind of like it more and more the more I hear it. Well, hey, guys, welcome to another session of Educators Podcast. So on Educators Roundtable, tonight we're going to talk about whether or not schools are preparing students for academic and career success. And it's an extended conversation. It's a continued conversation that we're having around education equity. You know, oftentimes, when you send your kid to school, Shannon, you're thinking, are they giving him or her exactly what they need in order to be successful? And then we talked about on previous podcasts in education equity, we talked about the third grade reading law. We talk about all the different tests that we're taking. We talk about the core curriculum and the Common Core standards and all of those things that come into play. But then when you boil down to it, our students are graduating from high school and we have the lowest finishing rate. Four-year colleges. Our kids are not making it past the first year. So I'm going to tell you, Shannon, this is going to be a great conversation. I think not just a good conversation. You and I talk about it all the time, but we got a special guest today. We have Dr. Jennifer Banks joining us. Welcome aboard, Dr. Banks.
Hello.
We're so happy and excited to have you on board with us here at Educators Roundtable. We talk about a lot of educational hot topics, but we've been kind of streaming on this education equity. And I don't know, Shannon, it's taking a couple different turns, right?
It totally has. Good evening, Dr. Banks, and welcome.
I just want to say, he comes off like so serious, but just don't.
No, I'm completely. No, I'm telling you, I'm so straight-laced. And I will also say that the theme music is greatly appreciated as well.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
All right, so we're really excited about having you here on this episode with us. So before we get started, I always like to tell people, go ahead and introduce yourself, let people know who you are, where you're at, any upcoming events or things that you have going on before we get the topics going.
Okay. I am Dr. Jennifer Banks. I'm Director of Instruction at Washtenaw ISD towards Ann Arbor. I service 9 districts and provide professional learning for teachers and leaders. I have tried to center my work largely around what it means to be culturally responsive and as a teacher and as a leader so that we are able to educate all students in the best way possible.
Oh, I love that. I'm applauding you. So that's one of the things that's really high on my marks, not because I have one of my masters is in curriculum and instruction, but often over the years, Shannon and I have known each other. We've always often talked about curriculum and the impact of curriculum across school districts. Mm-hmm. He and I, when he was superintendent, I was assistant superintendent. We had the best relationship because you know how school districts, you have a problem with students and you say, oh, we just got to get this kid out of our district, right? For whatever the reason is, you want to kind of transfer and put them in different places. And one of the things that we did was between our two schools, we would counsel one another on kids that may be having various behavior issues. And a lot of times it was because your sibling went to the same school as you, right? So you're bringing the stuff to school and stuff like that. Or it could be something like you really are having a hard time with effective communication skills. But one of the things that I love about us is that because of our school districts were down the street from one another, we were able to help out a lot of parents and keep them within the neighborhood, working with one another. And you have no idea how many parents were happy about that, because if there was an issue because they were a former student of a school down the street, I could pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, what have you guys been doing to really help this kid and kind of keep the learning going? And that's what's important too when it comes to kids, is the learning. So I'm going to tell you, our hot topic today is about whether or not we're doing what we need to do. So we can just start rolling out with our first question. So here we go. Our first question for tonight is, do you think the K-12 curriculum is preparing students for academic and career success? And in Dr. Banks, I'll start with you.
So I think in some ways we are, in some ways we are not, right? I think we have to be really intentional about building partnerships with our community. I think we need to be really intentional in understanding the students' lived experiences and applying those experiences to the classroom. What happens too often is that we have decontextualized our learning from kids' real life experiences. So we're learning linear equations. What does that have to do with my real life, right? And being really intentional about making that connection. I will also say is that we have to stop blaming students and their families for their lack of success, for students' lack of academic success. What are we not doing, right, as leaders, as educators, that is not making it accessible? Kind of like what the example you just shared, right? It's what was happening, be it at home or in the classroom, that would make a student not want to come to school or would make a student have some behavior issue. Like, what is it? Are they bored? So I think we just have to unpack a number of things to really determine and really critically analyze the curriculum that we do offer.
Okay, I like that. So Shannon, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know that I'm going to answer a question that you've not asked. So I'm just going to go ahead and take it like outside of the box of curriculum. Like that's not like that's not it. Like that's not the thing. It's a piece of the thing, but it's not the thing. And I say that when you start to really talk about preparedness and readiness, and you look at the United States on the global scale. And I go back to what Dr. Banks said a moment ago, and she shared really blaming families and making it accessible. And I think that as you think about what education can look like, really at the top of the list is an understanding of your role in the lives of those families. And some of the most successful schools and districts all over the world fully support families before those children even arrive at school. So that's something that we can kind of talk about a little bit later, but I think that's one of kind of the building blocks of an effective educational institution. But like globally, the United States is middle of the road. Like we really are. We're like in the middle, well, towards the bottom with mathematics. But ultimately, we spend a lot more money than almost every other country on the planet for really mediocre results globally.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize the context, right? Context is everything, right? And so numbers don't show the whole picture, right? There's a bunch of statistics, right? But what's the context in which those numbers work in?
So what's an example for you? And I'm only asking because I taught mathematics and science, robotics. So for you, what's the example within the context of understanding that our kids are not at the same level as, I'm going to say, as other school districts, and in comparably in the United States, our mathematics level is not comparable to those in other countries?
So, and I think I shared this before, like I really can't speak to what they're doing over in Europe, right, from Boston, because I'm not there. I don't know that context. But what I can share that is that when I was a high school teacher at University High School in Southfield, I know how we supported our students, right? At the collective teacher body, not just me as their algebra teacher, but as a collective body in partnership with their parents, and their results were different, right? Countless number of kids have graduated from there and been super successful, but several things were in place. And one was we had high expectations, no matter how you entered in, not what other people said you. When you got here are the expectations, and we're going to help support you. I think the other thing is this summer, in partnership with Oakland Schools and Wayne Risa, we call it a Tri-County Culturally Responsive Mathematics Institute. And in this institute, high school students, high school teachers, and pre-service teachers came together to engage in professional learning and then co-construct math lessons together.
Okay.
And the feedback from students was, who knew I could see myself in mathematics? Like, I never knew that math could be so relatable, and they were able to get it because it was in a context that they understood and that they helped to co-construct. The way our current system traditionally is extremely antiquated. Like it's been the same for centuries almost at this point.
Yes.
And because we haven't moved, we're trying to almost like put a circle into a box. It doesn't fit. Right? So how do we reconstruct that? And we need students and we need families to do that reconstruction.
So I'm going to 100% agree with you in how you change or shift the mindset of how you look at mathematics. And the only thing I can say is I'm so grateful that my son allowed me to use him as the experiment for everything. So for him, I taught him fractions and percentages. He wanted to learn how to play basketball. And I said, sure, I'll show you how to play basketball. But what is a 45-degree angle? If you can show me a 45-degree angle on the basketball court, and you can make 10 shots from there, then we're going to go and we're going to move to a 360. And so we did everything, a 180, a 90, a 45, a 36. And then we start talking about the pie, because in the middle of the basketball court, there's a circle. And so I said, well, if you look at this, what percentage of that pie are you standing in this moment? And so to be honest with you, I'm really grateful he allowed me to do that. But my son is brilliant in mathematics and science. So that's the reason why he's going to school in the area that he's going into, because of me, because I spent that time with him. And so my only constructive criticism and pushback is that being in a school district as a school administrator, I have parents who really didn't make it past 5th grade. So you got a kid in high school. And I remember when I was in high school, my mother used to send me down to Wayne State. And she said, I can't help you with algebra. I really can. I want to, but I can't. So when you're looking at that, what parents want to help their kids, and I know every parent didn't stand out on a basketball court to teach their kid fractions and percentages, right? That didn't happen. But that was a great way for me to translate what he was doing. Now, mind you, he played football, basketball, and I did the same thing with football. We were talking about yards, right? And so I would use that to do an algebraic, and I used to tell him, I said, every variable is a unknown number. And the variable is when a person pushes back on the line. When a person pushes back on the line, you lose yardage. And he used to say, Mom, why are you doing this? It's because I want you to understand variables. It's the unknown variable. So we're going to talk about A plus B plus C, and I'm going to give you what I do know, and you're going to try to figure out the rest. And so that's how he learned football. But again, he had me as a mom, and I was a little bit of a math fanatic. So I kind of used different things that he could relate to. So what do you say, Dr. Banks, when you have parents who don't have that? Like they want to help, but they just don't have it. They don't even know how to relate. I know parents, we gave a cooking class just to show parents how to use measuring cups to understand fractions. We did that.
Yes. So I think that's a wonderful point, right? So I think we first need to come in, because you're right. Every person does not have a mom or father or whomever in their life that necessarily is a math person. That being said, that's why I'm such a proponent of culturally responsive teaching, right? Because when you go to the doctor, you go with whatever ailment you have, right? And you expect that the doctor has a knowledge and a toolkit of things to figure out how to fix it. When I think about education, parents send their absolute best to your classroom door, whatever that may be, right? It's your job as the teacher, it's your job as the educator in that school, it's your job as the leader of that building to provide whatever supports we need to make it applicable so that child can learn. And that might mean additional tutoring services. It might mean just talking with the kid to figure out what they like, what they're engaged about. And I'm not talking like, oh yeah, he likes SpongeBob. Like moving beyond that. Right? Like really getting to authentically learn about a kid and build a relationship. Because can't tell you how many students I've had tell me, Ms. Banks, you are real cool. Like I love you, but your class is a whole different story.
Okay, but wait a minute, Dr. Banks, SpongeBob is still out there?
I don't know. I can't speak. That was when I taught 3rd grade. That, look, and I haven't been in the 3rd grade classroom in a good minute. But that's,
is SpongeBob still out there? He's been out there for years. He never get old.
I gotta be honest with you. I'm a little bit out of the SpongeBob loop, but I will say this, and it goes to what both of you shared. You, Burkett, with teaching parents how to use the measuring cups in the cooking class. And you, Dr. Banks, with really creating coherence and having those math teachers co-construct those lessons, and having the desire to get to know the students and understanding that that's a huge part of, like, it's a much, and I'm not going to stop saying this, a much bigger picture than curriculum. Like it's a system question. So I could not agree with both of you more.
You know, and I would like to see it. And that's one of the things I like, the concept behind what they call parent university. My pushback always on that concept of parent universities and all the things that they do is that we've got to understand you have to meet people where they are and then raise their expectations of where they can be. Because in a parent's mindset, and I hear parents say that all the time when they used to come to the school, well, you know what, Miss Burkett, I can't help them with their reading. I don't read very well. I said, well, okay, well, what if we can do something to help you and help them at the same time? Let's talk about that. How about we just encourage you to get on board? And so where do we need to start with you? So it's like creating reading circles. And during this time when we were on COVID, I work with multiple school districts, not just here in Michigan, but across the United States. And so one of the things that I work with them on is really, I started doing their professional development virtually and working with teachers to understand what they can do to help parents during this time. So normally you don't have parents in your classroom when you're doing reading time, correct? Because the parent is at work or somewhere else. But now the grandparents, somebody's around. And so what I said to them was, one, mail the same book home to everybody. And you all should be reading that same book together. So that was the first thing. The second thing was make a big deal about it. Change it, put together a presentation and ask them to act it out. Turn it into a rap song. How can you apply what this little boy or this little girl did today to your life? Explain to me the rationale behind that, because now you're talking about it in a sense of the grandmother or the father or the mother's there. And they're like, we read it, but this is what we thought. The parents got so engaged that when they went back to school, the parents asked the principal, well, can we come to school? Because we like that teacher. Can we just come for the reading time? The principal said, oh my gosh, I thought you were just a crazy woman telling the teachers to teach. We have more parents in our building right now because of what you said. I said, you got to be kidding me. He's like, no, they said, where's the reading lady? That was me. Where's the reading lady? I don't even work in that state. I'm not there. But the thing is that was the way for me to engage the parents, because I was like, you mean to tell me you haven't cut down that cherry tree and your thought was like he did the right thing? She said, no, I told Mark that wasn't the right thing to cut down that tree. He shouldn't have did that. I said, why shouldn't he have did it? You need to tell him right, because this is relating to his room not being clean. She said, you're right. Let me tell him right now. This is why. I love it, because it was teaching him how to relate. And guess what? The parents who didn't know how to read, they're the ones who came to the study group on Fridays, because they wanted to be able to read with their student during the class. See, that's what that was. That was encouraging. So yeah,
I think what you're bringing up is the importance of community, right? And I think the other part of our education system that we need to realize is that we have educators in every aspect of our lives, whether it's your mother, whether it's your grandmother, whether it's the person at the deli who's cutting up meat. Like, there are educators literally all around us. And so how do we value the education that we can also get from our own lived experiences and bring that and attach it to the academics? I mean, this whole idea of learning loss, I get what people are saying about, but it was a lot of learning that took place through the pandemic. A lot of learning that you wouldn't necessarily have had opportunity to because you weren't at home.
Right.
And so how do we attach to what we do have and not have these deficit perspectives and focus on those assets and use those to build students' traditional academic knowledge?
I love that. Hey guys, we got to go to commercial break. We'll be right back. When we come back though, we're going to talk about what are some of the tools and resources from your perspective that parents and students can use now to increase their reading levels. We have some of the lowest reading scores, and we want to make sure that our underserved community look at what's out there to help them bridge the gap on how they can increase their students' reading scores. We'll be right back right after our commercial break. Hey guys, welcome back. And so we're going to continue our conversation. You know, during this break, and I call it my transition to what's really happening to our new transition, which is why it's happening. But a lot of the parents are like, my kid didn't read enough. And what I found was that if you didn't come from a house of readers, and Dr. Banks, you look like you have a gazillion books back there. And Shannon reads like 20 books a week. He's like the walking, I don't know, genius. I love him. But as you see, there's books behind me. And I think that's the difference. I think we grew up in a time where parents said, education is power, learning is power. You know what I mean? So we just read, and learned as much as we could. Well, I think one of the differences is that social media tends to lend to the idea that our kids don't have to read as long as you got an awesome video and you doing something trick and all of this where you can do well, right? So in the mindset. So the thing is that I watched a class online where the teacher had to tell the kids, don't use text message conversation in writing in your writing assignment. Have you guys seen that? And I was kind of like, OMG, are you kidding me? Kids were using text message, the concept in their writing assignments. So the thing is that what tools or resources are out there to help parents and help students increase their reading level or their desire to read? I mean, I let kids read comic books because I like comic books. When I was teaching science, Shannon, don't tell anybody, but I used to take 15 minutes out of my class and let the kids read comic books because I just wanted them to read, and that was it. I just needed them to read. Plus, I like comic books, by the way. I'm a geeker. But anyways, so what do you think about that? Like, what can we do to help parents?
So I think one thing is reading with your child, right? I mean, that's a real basic one. I think the other thing is to recognize that texting language is a language. It's just a different language, right? That has been constructed. Now, is it something? There's a time and a place for everything. And so when you're having these conversations with them of realizing there's a certain way that I will engage in a conversation when I'm at work versus when I'm at home. There's a certain way I engage in the conversation when I'm writing a letter to your teacher versus writing a letter to my friend or sending a text to my friend. And so helping them to understand that. I think too often we don't have conversations about things. We just assume that they're going to do it. We have to talk about it. And as teachers, again, that's on us. Part of that is on us. Again, you would have kids put OMG or, I don't know. I usually have to need a translator for some of the texting.
Oh my gosh. An adult person did an abbreviation. I had to text them. What does this mean? What is this? I don't even understand what this means. But it kind of blew my mind. I don't know what to say about that. Q, thank you so much for tuning in. She says, I agree, Christine. Social media and technology has taken away from the importance of reading. They can simply ask Google or Siri, what's a book? LOL. And that is so true. Versus us, we didn't have Google and Siri. We literally had to go do the work my son, Dewey Decimal System. I kid you not. He said, Mom, what is that?
I mean, you know what, Burkett? He doesn't need to know what that is. And for a lot of different reasons. But what I will say is this: what he does need to know is when he finds that resource, and it'll likely be electronic wherever he is, how to really analyze and synthesize his own ideas based on what he reads. And ultimately, that's the challenge for teachers now, is to really get away from thinking around kind of how things used to look, because we have an opportunity today to reimagine what education can and should look like. And at this point, there's enough federal money coming to states and local municipalities in order to thoughtfully do so over an extended period of time.
But I still want him to know what it is. I know he's never going to walk in a library. Like I told him, he'll never walk in a library. And I get that part. But could you just know what it is? He was like, Mom.
Burkett, yes, he should. It's important.
I want him just to know what it is.
It is. It's important. Nope. I couldn't agree with you more. Because it was such a powerful system, right?
It was.
That the 500s were, I don't know. But I mean, there was something. There were autobiographies. Okay,
I would be honest with you. I think that whole concept, the library, he was like, Mom, nobody goes there. We turn our library, because he went to West Bloomfield High School. And he says, Mom, we turn our library into a computer lab. I was just like, we don't even have libraries in schools anymore. So there you go. Okay, so question number 2. Do you think if we taught students history through the lens of all cultures, would that shift their mindset? And I'm only asking because I do a lot of work in diversity, equity, inclusion with companies. And I'm kind of thinking that the younger people who I'm talking to, if they really understood their culture, because right now it's a global culture. Like my son, when I talk to him, he goes, Mom, is that really relevant? You're an African-American male. It is very much relevant. What do you mean? But he doesn't see the lens through color. And I'm grateful, but then I'm kind of like concerned because other people are still walking around. So Dr. Banks, what do you think about that?
So I think it's super important in every subject area to make some connection to culture, some connection, because whether you want to admit it or not, we are living proof of a culture, right? We're living proof that when you think about African American history and African Americans, where we have come from, but all of the celebrations of what we are,
yes.
Right? There's a beauty with being an African American. There's a beauty that comes with that, and that is present in every culture. And if we don't talk about that, if we don't be it with students of color as well as white students, if we don't have that conversation, we're doing them injustice, because then you can't see yourself. Then why is it important when you talk about I want him to know the Dewey Decimal System? For what? What is it adding to my life? If education is not adding to your life, then it becomes disillusion. I don't need that.
Yeah,
it's not important. So when we don't put students' cultures in what we teach, that's what we're doing. We're saying what you bring to the table isn't important, and that we can't expect them to just grab on. There will be some that will grab on, but there will be many that don't, and that's not fair.
I agree, because St. Patrick's Day comes up. Shannon, what's up? Are you at the bars on St. Patrick's Day? Because Martin Luther King birthday come up. I didn't know we did. I dream of something. What were we doing?
It's a little bit different from me.
Okay.
For 2 reasons. One, my name is Shannon and it's Gaelic. 2, I was born in the month of March. So I kind of celebrate the entire month.
I know, Shannon, but I'm picking on you.
Just happens to be in there. But to go back to what Dr. Banks said, in all sincerity, when I see me in the learning, I am more excited about it. And I think that culturally responsive education is a way of seeing diversity as a source of knowledge. And students who see themselves in the work, who see themselves presenting the work, are a lot more active and engaged, and they really feel better, not only about the work, but about themselves, because they were considered in the planning of that lesson and or activity.
I'm going to say that's number one, crucial. One of the things when I came back here to live in Michigan, my father was a school teacher, and he said, I need you to teach. And I said, Dad, I don't want to teach. I don't even like kids. That's why I became a chemist. I just like to sit in my classroom and do quality control. I don't want to work with kids. And my dad said, no, because they've never seen a Black woman in the classroom like you. You love science. I need you just to go back and just teach. Well, that was one of the best decisions of my life, because teaching at Redford High School, which anybody knows when Redford High School is open, those kids in the Burt Road gang, those guys, they cracked me up. Those kids were so out of control. And I remember my principal saying to me, my first day, he picked me up and brought me to work because he didn't think I was going to show up. And he picked me up from my parents' house. And I was just like, I was coming, but I was kind of nervous. And I remember he said to me, be prepared. This is urban education. The kids are, off the chain. Just be prepared. And it really took me a minute. But, one of the things at the end, which really made me proud, was that the kids said, we knew you cared. So we kept coming to your class. The football player said they were just going to other classes. They were actually coming to my class and learning, because they said, you care. You made us excited. And it was just great to see you were a Black person teaching us science. Like, we love that. And so that's the thing, because they could now see themselves in that area, in that space. And that's so important that I think we start looking at that. And I start talking all about other Black scientists through history who have been there. in that space. And they were kind of shocked. They didn't even know that these things were happening. I said, what do you mean? I keep forgetting in African-American history, we talk about 5 people, African-American history, Mom. I'm just being serious. Are we still talking about the same 5 people that we were talking about?
I believe
5
so.
might be too many.
Actually, I agree with you, Dr. Banks. 5 maybe pushing it.
So we done reduced it from our top 5.
Who are the top 5?
Yeah, I was gonna say who the 5?
Okay, one, everybody knows the Peanut Man.
No.
George Washington Carver. Go ahead.
Dr.
They're not doing that, really? Not anymore.
We don't even do him.
Maybe, but no. I don't. Maybe.
I mean, I know Ben Carson dropped off since he, made the transition, but we used to show his movie. We used to show his movie. I'm just Ben Carson off the list. We know that. Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. We don't even talk about Madam C.J. Walker and her hair care products. We don't do that. That's all.
So let me say this. I think it depends on your context, right? So depending when I taught in the city, when I taught in Southfield, I could readily say that. Now that I'm in Washington County, it's
right.
More more rural.
Right. And suburban.
Rural and suburban, but a lot rural.
Yeah.
That's not the case. That is not necessarily what is always brought out. And across the United States, talking about numbers, 88% roughly at least 80% of our teaching staff across the United States are white women. At least 80%.
Wow. Okay, so, I'm not going to disagree, but you guys don't. I mean, even in the school districts I work in who are in the suburbs in other states, that's one of the things that I said. If we're going to celebrate life, we need to sell. And so they did. They started teach. And by the way, I didn't give them those 5 because we don't want to hear about those 5 anymore. I gave them some other folks. But my thing is every week, you're supposed to be learning something new about a culture, which means the first week is African-American culture. You tie it into your assignment, whether it's math, science, English, or social studies. The second week is American Indians. You get what I'm saying? Everybody had a week. And it tied into your lesson where you had to say something about that culture that was related to what you were doing, what their contribution was. Because everybody contributed to the United States of America. The one culture did not contribute to that. And so that's what it's about.
So I agree with you, but when you have to tell the whole story, and not everyone contribute willingly, right? And so when you think about the land that we stand on throughout, the land theft, the slavery, all of that has to be a part of the conversation as well, which really doesn't paint the larger portion of the population in a positive light. But that's I think a little bit of a different conversation. On a side note, Dr. Banks, I started my teaching career in Washington County, and I totally get when you say it's a little bit rural, a little bit suburban. It really is. And I mean, she's got folks that live in cornfields.
Oh no, I totally understand.
Yeah.
Oh, trust me. In other states, that's where I'm at. I'm out there with the people.
Yeah,
it's a little different.
So let me just say here, though, too, I think, too, we have to be authentic in how we incorporate. So even having one a week, like you can't get all of Black history in 1 week.
You can't.
Like you can't get it all in 1 month.
No, but it's one a week for the entire school year.
I get it.
What I'm saying.
I get it.
That's more than most school districts give.
I don't didisagree, but I wonder again, how do we bring students, like look at who's in your class, right? And if it's all white students, if it's all Black students, how do we help them do the investigation of learning outside? How do we connect them with other students that look different from them? How do we provide opportunities?
When you're in a rural area and you've never seen a Black person, I've showed up.
That's on the educator.
No, but I'm just being totally honest. I walked in the school districts and they look at me, and one of the girls said, well, you're the same color as us, but you're not. And I said, well, ask your question. She said, well, are you mixed with Black people? I said, yes, I am. She said, well, that makes you Black. I said, okay. I said, do we have any concerns or questions? She said, no. The first thing she said was, well, if you a smart lady, we really don't care. That's the only thing she said. If you're a smart lady, we really don't care. I was there to show them how to use their laptops. They flew me in just to spend time with the kids in rural areas to show them how to use their laptops and their devices at home. That's it. That's all I had to do. And trust me, I was the first Black person that a lot of them have ever seen close up and not on TV. But now that was a weird experience.
Right. But that doesn't have to be. So as educators, how do we expand the window? Whether you're in the city, in a predominantly Black space, because they need to also see students like them, right? Or if you're in a predominantly white area, how do we expand your world so you can see students that don't look like you? So just really thinking outside the box of these traditional ways of thinking and getting in community partners. I know all of our local ISDs are available for support in many ways. Like, how you connect to achieve that?
That is the question. How do you connect to achieve that? I mean, Shannon, you guys are the largest school district in the United States of America, the New York School District. How are you guys doing it? Because you have the melting pot sitting over there.
Yeah, I think, hey, first off, it's a great question. And New York is an incredibly diverse place, right? However, along with that diversity comes incredible inequity. So you can go from Manhattan to the Bronx and see some of the best schools in America as far as student achievement is concerned, and then some who are really struggling. And I say all that to say this. I think that there's a standard that should be held for everyone, right? I don't think that there should be anyone in front of students that does not fully see, embrace, and value the background and needs of all those students. There should not be a single person who's working with our children that shouldn't be able to speak to the various forms of bias and oppression openly and regularly, right? I think being able to identify practices that historically boost advantaged groups at the expense of marginalized groups needs to be called out on a regular basis. And I say all that to say this. New York has adopted culturally responsive, sustaining education, which embraces all of these things. And I think that there's awareness. And now I think that we're sliding into the area of application with what does this look like in various buildings and in various districts.
Mm-hmm. You guys are doing awesome work there in New York. And you know, I love that. I do a lot of research on you guys. And when I'm with clients across the US, I always ask them to refer to New York. Because I do. So that's the reason why when we talk, I know so much about what's going on.
But absolutely not perfect, though. And we've got lots of work.
But you guys are doing some rock star there. So guys, we've got to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back after these messages. Okay, guys, welcome back. I'm going to tell you this is a real hot topic. Unfortunately, you guys can't see all the comments and things that are being said, but people are really just like, yeah, I'm hearing what you guys are saying. So what are some of the things you feel we can do to ensure we are providing a competitive K12 education program? So what's one of the things, Dr. Banks, you think that we could be doing right now? All schools.
Commit to a culturally responsive curriculum.
Okay. Shannon?
Provide resources, meaningful resources to historically disadvantaged and underserved students in ways that can substantially increase the quality of their experience. And I'm not just talking about money or devices. I'm talking about quality teachers. I'm talking about quality facilities, all of the things that we know great schools need in order to excel.
And I would simply add to that, I'm in 100% agreement with what both of you have shared. is to take people like me who came from corporate America as a chemist, and I had such a love and a passion for it that I was able to express that in the classroom. And I think when you think inside out, and I always tell people, think inside out, education has shifted and changed so much. Take an outside perspective of how you can really educate your students and really look at what the needs are. Because we had a podcast on a couple months ago where Kelly said, everybody's at the same fence. And some kids can see over the fence, and then some kids could not see over the fence. And the reason is because of what Shannon was saying. It was the resources and where they were at, and whether or not they were being sufficiently supplied with what they needed. And sometimes you just need to think that it's just more imagination, more conceptual ideas of how you can apply what it is that you're learning. And it was to your point, Dr. Banks, when you said a kid is not going to understand the importance of a linear equation until they realize how they can apply it to everyday living. And that is so important. And that's one of the things that I did when I was a teacher. And sometimes I often think, could I ever go back in a classroom? Of course I can, because I love it. But teaching mathematics and science in such a way where kids could apply it, that's what made me happy when they got that aha moment and they would come back the next day and understand how it applied to everyday living. So I'll say to you guys, that's my only add in. I think teachers need to think more inside out, look for experts in the field, invite them to your classroom, because it may be that light bulb moment that kid gets it when he can see how this is applied to being an architect. It's so much about mixing music, because I look at all these different things, or you're playing video games and just understanding how to design a video game. In my company, we offer IT courses, and we show kids how to build their own gaming devices. You can be a part of an esports team, but you got to build your device first. And then once you build your device, then you can join the team, but then you have to take coding classes to then start doing what? Designing your own game. See, I don't let you just join the esports team. You got to do something to earn that. You got to understand what it takes and all the devices and resources and materials that go with it in order to do that. You know why? Because colleges are now offering scholarships for esports. Esports is a $1 billion industry that we are still the minority in, and we don't understand it from back to front. But guess what? Some of the best coders that work at some of the top companies come out of esports. So I'm going to tell you that's like a field in the area in the space that we're not thinking of, because we're not thinking outside of the box. So our last question for tonight is, what is your view on the state of education in the United States for the underserved community? And when I talk about the underserved community, I'm not always talking about urban, because our rural community is being impacted as well, because of where they're located. They don't have access to a lot of the different resources that urban education does. I mean, Shannon, we said it the other day, our kids can get on the bus and go to a museum. When you're in rural, if your mama's not taking you, that's about 200 miles outside of town. You may not be able to make it. So how do we do that? And so Dr. Banks, I'll start with you.
So when we think about resources, right, and especially with the COVID stimulus packages that have come through, there's just an influx of money going into districts right now. I wonder if we look at what those assets are beyond just a program, or just beyond, more computers. We got a lot of stuff. I mean, you can call any technology company and get 1,000,001, 180, all the things. But if we don't invest in student relationships, if we don't invest in parents and in community, it will all be for naught. So what do they need to get to school and feel loved, seen, and valued? What do they need so that the family feels like they can come in and have a conversation with the principal or with the teacher and not have a fear or their own insecurities from their own experiences? I feel like we need to reshape, right? When we talk about what do they need? We need to ask them, what do you need?
Yes.
How can we better support you when we think about education?
I like what you just said. Asking them, what do you need? Has any school district actually just sat down and surveyed their kids and asked them, what do you need? What is it that you want to do, and what can we do to help you get there? Like, do we really talk to our students? I mean, in your case, Shannon, it's New York. It's a lot of kids. So do you guys have a survey system that you use to talk to all the kids? Because I know realistically, how many kids
Yeah.
do you have in your school district?
Yeah. We actually do have a survey system that we use to talk to all our kids. And a lot of that information is used with various divisions to drive and impact policy. It's a requirement. But I could not agree more with what Dr. Banks said. And I'll add to that, and something that we haven't talked about. In America, in the United States, we really are all proud of the fact that we offer free education to every student. Mm-hmm. Like, we are, right? I mean, not every country in the developed world does it. While we may not be the best, we're definitely not by far the worst, but everyone has a public school that's free that they can send their child to. But I think one thing that comes to mind is how schools and teachers use time, how they utilize time as a resource, and that's something that it's the one resource that's like non-renewable, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a complete rethinking of how we leverage time to the benefit of students, and really stepping completely away from the factory model. But that's probably a different conversation for another time. But I think just tying kids to bells and to 50-minute classes, and that is such an outmoded, archaic way of thinking about students learning. Not quite as much as the Dewey Decimal System, but like almost.
Really? Can you tell that I'm an avid reader and I was probably in the library every day? So my thing with the Dewey Decimal is huge, Shannon. I'm just saying I fell in love with reading because the librarian. I'm going to tell you, honestly, the librarian is the one who I used to look at science through a lens of just, my dad took half of the garage and turned it into a lab for me, right? Just so I could do science experiments and stuff. So my parents just allowed me to grow in that space, right? But the thing is, the librarian is the one who just kept giving me books. I'm sorry, Dr. Banks and Shannon, that Dewey Decimal System is like music to me. But I love Google. I'm going to tell you, I love Google now. I'm really big about it.
I want to just say this as well. And it goes back to, like every few years, there's this international body that they test 15-year-olds, right? In math, science, ELA. And Finland is consistently above the United States in like every category.
Everything. Yeah.
The weird thing is, like, kids, like, they take these 1-hour breaks in the middle of the day. They like there's no homework. Nope. It's just antithetical for the, like, really in comparison to the way that we think about what schools should look like. And I think honestly, internationally, we could look at some examples and really begin to rethink specifically how we utilize our time.
I agree with you. Yeah. When I lived in Paris for 2 years, I was so baffled because when the team went to lunch, to your point, Shannon, I was thinking, for us in America, we take lunch, it's on a time thing. Like, what are y'all doing? Honey, they was drinking wine and sitting back and having I'm thinking, are we gonna all get fired if we don't get back to the office? I'm stressing. They were like, what are you doing? We're at lunch. We'll get back when we get back. Is
and
this
it's
how we
daily thing?
Yes. Like, they didn't rush. They're just, so I had to embrace that because it was a whole different. You're right. I was on the plant. I was like, we got 30, 45 minutes. We got to get back. Like, I'm not going to lose my job. And they were all laughing at me. Like, Christine, calm down. And literally the boss walked by and was like, oh, I was like, what is happening here? But it was a different concept. So you're right. Their way of thinking, their lifestyle, how they embrace everything is a lot different than us. So I don't know. I mean, I just kind of think, what do you think, Dr. Banks?
I mean, I will just say from my experience and being in a number of districts across Michigan, I'll say, is that in certain spaces, the environment is like a production area, right? Or a factory. In other spaces, it is not. It is the complete opposite.
Wow.
So I did my dissertation on the experiences of African-American high school students in the math classroom. And so I interviewed students throughout Michigan. And what I found was in more affluent areas, students had a lot more freedom to do a lot of different things, right? And I've seen this also. Versus in more urban areas, it's more line up, stand at the door, like don't move till I tell you to. It's very scripted, right? The ability to critical think is limited.
It is.
What's your thoughts? How are you like that? Those kind of conversations don't happen in urban areas. And I would argue that is purposeful. I would argue that the way our current education system is set up is for those that are considered to be affluent to move higher up the leadership realm, and those that are not considered to be affluent to move down the manufacturing, I guess, plant mentality, right? And not that there's anything wrong with those jobs at all. My grandmother, half my family in Michigan worked at GM on the plant, right? Nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong is if we're preparing students for that versus preparing them to be leaders in their community in a different capacity. When we limit students with our expectations, that's where the problem comes in at. And to me, I've seen that. I've studied it. Jean Anion did a book in the 1980s on it. And we continue to do it. We still do it.
We're definitely doing it right now. With everything that's going on, 100%, we're definitely doing it. And so my question is, how do we transpose that conversation?
So I think that goes into the we need parents, we need community members to say enough is enough, right? We have to demand more, but we also have to realize that we can demand more, right?
Do you think parents know that?
I do not. I am 100% confident they do not.
Shana, what's your thoughts? Do parents know that?
No. No, I don't think they do, but I think there are so many fundamental needs that aren't met with those families in those communities that the time and energy is largely spent on ensuring that those needs are cared for. And I think that as it relates to education, it just falls lower and lower down the list. But no, I agree with Dr. Banks wholeheartedly. But I will also offer this: factories built the Black middle class,
for sure,
and Black folks were financially much better off in the 50s and 60s than they are today.
And so we do understand, because now it moves into the space where I'm in. And now factories are going to IT, and you have automation and AI in them. And that's one of the things that I said, to several friends of mine. I said, a robot is getting ready to replace what you do on the line. So why don't you be the guy that can do the maintenance on the robot? Can you just learn that? And, they kind of blew me off. Like, oh, it's not happening. At least 6 months later, they were unemployed.
Well, that shift occurred 40 years ago.
No, but still you got people today who really don't think they're going to lose their job because they think that a robot can't do this one little thing that you do. Yes, they can. Even right now in the plants.
And I agree with that. So, and let me be clear. Let me be super clear for my grandmother to come back on and knock me out. Like, there is nothing wrong with working at the plant. There's nothing wrong, right? It's a good income. You can take care of your family. The problem is we cannot be producing students
to work
for work in a way that does not get to all of their abilities. Like, we don't even give them we don't even have the expectation that they can do more.
We ask them to do. We ask them to do and not think. Right.
Yes. Yes.
which is not going to help you be successful at all.
And not with the fast-paced changing of the world today.
It's not.
I mean, today's job might not be tomorrow's job, right? I mean,
exactly.
We all know that.
And then thinking beyond that moment, which concerns me. Students now, young people now think in this moment. They don't think about what's going to happen in that next moment with their actions. And I always say that, I look at, my son was showing me TikTok and what some young lady had posted. And I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be out here for forever. What is happening? Why would she do that? He was like, Mom, she doesn't care. But why couldn't you? Why don't you care that what you just posted will be out there? Boom.
But our memories are also a lot shorter. Our attention spans are a lot shorter. Our I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartly. I'm just saying.
So you think that's what's happening right now? We're just saying it's short and just get over it.
I think especially our adolescents, their brains are being literally rewired, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with a little bit differently. And I think we need to try and understand it, because approaching it from our perspective won't get us where we think we need to be with them.
I know I'm learning my new language with my son, who's 19. He'll be 20 next month. So trust me, it's a whole transition. I'm still, I'm trying to hold on. But now when he texts me, I go, please don't do abbreviations. And it's like slang and text messaging, because I don't understand any. Just do longhand with me. I'm not there yet. I have to tell that to him. I think he was asking me, it'll be 5 minutes before I call you back. And it looked like Chinese. I didn't know what was happening. It was an emoji. It was something else happening, and it had 5. I was like, I didn't know what that was about. So, what can I say? But this is just what happens. But I'm learning. I'm trying to keep up on it. And I'm going to say to you guys, thank you so much, Dr. Banks, for joining us on this session of Educators Roundtable. We would love to have you back anytime. We love to talk to educators who are excited about education, what's happening in the classrooms, and can actually just provide a lens to other educators and to other school districts and to parents, about what they have access to and how valuable it is. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to coming back one day.
I love it. And so, Shannon, of course, I love seeing you every week, but what else is new, right?
Oh, it just
what can I say?
Me too, Burkett, me too.
See how he acts? I'm telling you, it amazes me, Dr. Banks, how he acts. But everybody out here, thank you so much for joining us here for this session of Educators Roundtable. And we'll be back next week, same time, same place, with another Education Hot Topic.